Hello and welcome to the FinTech Magazine Show, brought to you by FinTech Magazine, InsurTech Magazine and BizClick Media Group. I'm Alex Clere, and as always, over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll be bringing you all the latest news, analysis and opinions from the world of FinTech, right here on LinkedIn, YouTube and our other digital platforms. Now, in honour of International Women's Day, which obviously happened this Wednesday, I'm very pleased to say that we're joined by a very special guest, BizClick Editor-in-Chief, Lucy Buchholz, from the Women Empowerment Magazine, March 8. Welcome to you, Lucy. It's great to have you here for your first time on the FinTech Magazine Show.
Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for having me. I've been really excited about joining you on today's show.
And we're really lucky to have you. Thank you very much. Now, a little bit later in the show, we'll be talking about gender diversity in finance and insurance with Lucy. We also have a great interview to share with you from Darcy Donovan, who is a Hollywood actress turned crypto investor. As always, don't forget to join in with the chat. Say hello in the comments section on LinkedIn, and even better, tell us where you're joining from today as well. We may even read a selection of those comments later in the program. We also have a LinkedIn poll that you can take part in. Lucy, as it's your first time on the FinTech Magazine Show, why don't you tell us what that poll is?
Absolutely. So today's poll is, what is the biggest obstacle for women in business today? First answer is access to funding, B, gender bias in the workplace, C, lack of female mentorship, or D, the chance for career progression.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So do take part in that poll. We look forward to seeing the results of that poll later in the program. Okay, let's start by taking a look at the latest FinTech and InsurTech news. So we start this month with the latest FinTech news. My pick of the stories for FinTech is the fact that alternative lending FinTech Abound has raised £500 million in the company's largest funding round so far. So just to put that into perspective, Abound had raised £70 million in funding since it was founded in 2020. So that's a huge leap in its fundraising. Now, obviously, not all of that money comes through equity investment. Some of it is equity, but a large chunk of it as well comes in the form of debt financing, which will allow Abound to continue offering loans to consumers. Now, Abound was founded in 2020 by two senior credit experts who wanted to utilize open banking and artificial intelligence to offer an alternative to credit scores. Credit scores are used pretty much universally to determine credit decisioning, but they're not always the most reliable metric. If you don't have a particularly extensive credit history, for instance, credit scores are not going to be particularly useful for you because they just don't know enough information. And they can also marginalize consumers who've had financial difficulties in the past, but who otherwise would be quite reliable borrowers. So Abound are recognizing that and trying to pursue an alternative for credit decisioning. So they use open banking to access a consumer's transactional history and artificial intelligence to weigh up the risk of lending money to a particular user. Clearly, this comes at an opportune time for the lending market. Consumers in many Western countries face cost of living pressures, and many consumers will want to know whether or not they have somewhere to turn if they need a little bit extra to cover household bills or expenses. Abound estimates that the current system could exclude 15 million people in the UK alone from borrowing to cover unexpected costs. The company has been growing 30% month on month and has served more than 150,000 borrowers since its inception. And then in terms of risk, the company actually says its own customers miss repayments 75% less than the industry standard, despite taking on borrowers who might otherwise be deemed riskier by mainstream lenders. Gerald Chappell, who's the CEO and co-founder of Abound, pictured there, says that the £500 million fundraise is, quote, a testament to the demand and success of our service, particularly in this current challenging economic landscape. So there we have it. That's our FinTech news story for the month. I always love a good news fundraising story to kick off the show. So we'll move on now to our InsurTech news story. So my pick from the last month is a piece of research conducted by Global Data into the appetite among consumers for insurance offerings by the large big tech firms. So we're talking about the likes of Apple, Google, Amazon, those companies that we already have in our lives in some way, but whether or not we'd be willing to buy insurance products from them. Last year, Global Data did a consumer survey, and it's done it again this year. The market research firm asked 4,000 people about whether they would purchase home insurance in particular from a range of big name alternative providers. So that includes the tech companies I mentioned, but also social media platforms, energy providers, and some others. The findings show that there's been a marked drop-off in interest across all the companies that Global Data asked about, with consumers on average 3 percentage points less likely to consider purchasing insurance from an alternative provider. The steepest decline in interest was consumers purchasing home insurance from their energy provider, which scored over 5 percentage points lower than the same survey last year. Obviously, high energy prices caused in part by the war in Ukraine have hiked up the cost of energy bills and created a rift between consumers and their energy providers. So perhaps that goes some way to explaining why that figure is so low. So consumers, they're not really enamored by the idea of buying insurance direct from their energy provider. The best performing company was Google, with more than a fifth of respondents saying they would consider purchasing home insurance from the search giant. So 16.7% of respondents say they would buy home insurance from Amazon. That's down 3 percentage points on last year, while just 11.5% would consider Apple, over 2 percentage points lower than in 2021. So at first glance, perhaps this research suggests that the threat posed by big tech companies potentially infringing on the insurance industry is going down. But actually, Global Data have been quite vocal that the threat from big tech companies to insurers still exists. It also seems to be in conflict with the obvious growth we've seen recently in the embedded insurance market. But actually, embedded insurance companies aren't seeing it that way either. Many of these companies, Google, Apple, Facebook, they are so big that when they consider doing financial products, sometimes they're partnering with established players in their respective market. But a lot of the time, they're just doing it all themselves because, quite frankly, they can. A good example was Apple's launch into buy now, pay later last year. Apple obviously has huge cash reserves, and so it took the decision to underwrite all of that lending itself, and one of its subsidiaries actually obtained a lending license to be able to do that, whereas perhaps the obvious route would have been to partner with an existing fintech lender. So perhaps this is actually an opportunity for embedded insurance providers to continue their recent growth. Hesitancy in the market might force large companies to reevaluate doing everything themselves. Quentin Coleman, who's CEO of embedded insurance company Cover, told FinTech Magazine that by embedding insurance products into their digital channels, big tech companies can actively engage customers along the entire life cycle and incentivize them to use their services more frequently and for longer periods. So it'll be interesting to follow the progress in that market, particularly as the economy evolves, and to see whether it continues to affect consumer confidence in the big players. So that's our news for the month. That brings us to the end of that section. Stick with us though, because after the break, we have an interview with influencer and crypto investor Darcy Donovan about the digital asset space, and we'll be talking to Lucy about all things March 8, gender equality in the finance industry, and looking at the top 5 women in fintech. See you after this short break.
We've proven that it's possible to digitize large business at scale and quickly, and that the way you do that is by really anchoring your approach on the customer.
Yorkshire Building Society is one of the largest mortgage and savings providers in the UK. We're a top 10 lender, and we've got a balance sheet of over £55 billion and over 2.5 million customers.
So customer outcomes are essential to transformation. And the way that we do that at YBS is we design with customer needs and wants at the outset. And that's research-led, so that's not us second-guessing it. And once we've defined that, we get very, very clear and measure against customer outcomes rather than projects and programs. The core message for me around Yorkshire Building Society is it's an incredibly purposeful organisation. We have a real impact to society and our members. But traditionally, we've maybe not been able to do that with the level of capability that other providers can. So it can be difficult to do business with us, particularly if you want to operate digitally. We've been on a journey that's created the capabilities that allow us to not only be purposeful, but to do that in an incredibly modern, engaging way. We're removing friction all the time to make it really easy to do business with us.
Our vision for the next 12 to 18 months is really about how we can go from good to great. So we've got this vision that our mortgage and savings businesses can be really kind of quite distinct and quite unique by taking this best of breed approach, using digital and human to create something that's totally distinct in the market.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Now, we're honoured to be in the company of BizClick editor Lucy Buckholtz from March 8 magazine. While we have you, Lucy, I think you should tell us more about what March 8 is and what it does. What is March 8?
Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for having us again. So yeah, really excited to tell you more about March 8. So we are a community and publication that is basically just looking to elevate women in business. So we elevate, educate and motivate women through various different means. Over the past year, we've had a mentorship program to help connect senior women to more junior staff. We also have an academy as well, where we've worked with children to really just empower them and to help them make choices that maybe they didn't even know existed, or maybe have missed out in the education system. And obviously our bi-monthly publication, as you can see on the screen now, covers all these different aspects, as many as we possibly can. And we talk to senior leaders in various different industries just to hear their stories, give them a platform, and to inspire other women.
And of course, one of the reasons we have you on the show today is because we're celebrating International Women's Day, which was on Wednesday just gone. And as you might expect, you marked the occasion in style with a dedicated virtual event.
Yes, we did. It was an amazing event. If you haven't actually been able to see it, then I would love for you to take the time to have a little look at it. We had 4 incredible speakers from various different backgrounds, and we held 2 panel discussions. We covered a massive range of topics, including imposter syndrome and diversity in the workplace. And I'd probably give you a little bit of a background on one of my favorite speakers. She's called, I probably shouldn't say favorite, but whenever I hear her story, it really resonates with me. So she's from Microsoft, and her name is Priyanka Gangshetty, and she tells the most inspirational story ever about how she overcome all the barriers has faced her in her life to come to the place where she is now at Microsoft, and breaking barriers as a woman in tech and a role model. And she is just truly inspirational. So if you do have a few hours to spare, then I would definitely recommend revisiting the show.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely going to catch up with that. Obviously, I'm interested in the speakers and the content as well, but I do have a bit of an ulterior motive too, because we have our own one-day virtual event coming up at the beginning of May. So I'm going to be watching that, on the lookout for some presenting tips. Obviously, the issue of gender parity in finance and insurance, it's a big topic. It always comes up. Are fintech companies doing enough for female representation in the boardroom? One of the statistics actually that jumped out at me was when you look at the number of women being recruited at entry level in the world of finance, it's actually relatively high. I think financial services across the board, it's 46%. Banking in particular, I think, is over 50%. But when you go to C-suite and executive positions, those senior positions, the numbers drop off drastically. We're just not getting the number of talented women into senior positions that we should be doing. Is that a theme that you notice over at March 8 magazine? And if so, how do you think we should go about addressing that?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, this is a problem that plagues, I think, every industry and every sector out there. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a hard and fast answer to the question. I think it would be wonderful if there was, and we could just tackle that. But there are various different ways in which companies can become more inclusive to help women reach those leadership positions. One really popular way is returnship programs. Obviously, for when women take time off to either care for elderly relatives, if they have children, even if they just want a career break or something like that, it can be really hard for them to get back into their chosen career. So a lot of big companies are now offering returnship programs to incentivize women to help build their confidence, which is a key thing that actually deters them from entering the workplace and ultimately reaching those senior leader positions. So returnship programs is great. And also for the women that actually do reach those leadership positions, it's really important to promote mentorships, because the old saying, seeing is believing, couldn't ring any more true. And we really need to kind of help the less senior staff and the new staff have that confidence that they can actually reach those positions, and also by explaining how those ladies get to those positions, which is actually one of the things that we do quite well in March 8. We have a feature called How She Got There, which does go through and outlines the main steps that individuals took to get those careers, because sometimes it can be so daunting to see somebody in such a high powered position, and if you're just starting off your career or something, you can feel completely lost as to how you'd reach that. So I think that's another really key point. And my final point would probably be to just encourage a really diverse company culture, to ensure that everybody's inclusive, that everybody wants to hear everybody's voices, and to ensure that all employees understand the importance of diversity and why we need to have different voices at the table.
Okay, thank you for that. Some really valid points there. It's certainly something I think the industry needs to push on with. And let's face it, there's no better time to do that than the present. Okay, as promised, it's time for our interview section now. Joanna England spoke to Darcy Donovan, who is an actress, recording artist, and now a crypto investor too. She spoke about whether more women are investing in cryptocurrencies and what she expects to see following the recent crypto winter. Let's take a look.
I had a study come across my desk recently about the kinds of things that women were investing in. And the top thing that women tend to invest in is property, and it's been property for a long time. But the next biggest thing that women of our generation and younger are investing in is actually cryptocurrency. So, I mean, are you seeing a lot more women in the space?
Oh, yes. I mean, it is still male dominated space, but, I think I tell all the women, do as much research as you can, watch the YouTube, especially, I'll tell you, a lot of women are in NFTs. The non-fungible tokens, that's a lot of women are in that. So, my thing is, I tell people, do as much research as you can, watch YouTube video, read books, get into Twitter spaces. That's the big thing, Twitter spaces. I mean, I was in a Twitter space, Elon Musk was in there, and, he was talking about, digital currency and all that kind of stuff. So, to get involved with online communities, that's a big deal. And more than anything, only invest. I cannot tell. I keep telling people this, only invest what you can afford. Okay. So that's the big thing. I think what happens is people, do things that they shouldn't be doing. And, people laugh at me when I say this, but it's like going to Vegas, I mean, you got to be careful, with anything, Web3 is bringing, people and businesses together around the world, Joanna. So, I mean, it's a very exciting time. And I mean, there's people that I've met in the space that I don't think I would have ever met if it hadn't been for Web3. I've been in Hollywood, I've been in the entertainment industry, film and television for years and years and years. And just some of the people that I've met, it's just insane that I've met through Web3. And not in the entertainment industry. So it's like, it's just an amazing time. So I'm very, very excited.
It's great to hear you hear that you're so optimistic about it, because obviously, like the last few months within the crypto space, we've seen a pretty diabolical crypto winter, and all the news that has been coming out, especially with FTX, has been kind of a little bit depressing. But now we're in a new year, 2023. There seem to be lots of exciting things going on. What are your predictions on the crypto winter?
Well, I mean, everybody is calling this crypto winter, but I don't look at it that way. What I look at, it is a building market. You got to think, if you're building a house, it's not going to be like, okay, if you're going to sell it on the market, you have to build it. So to me, it's a building market. And this is what I tell people. And through this shift, we're seeing a lot of bad apples, scams, BS getting weeded out, like FTX. It's paving the way for legitimate businesses with solid and reliable plans to come into the forefront. So we're seeing so many integrations and technologies that are introduced through the blockchain as well. So, just within the last week, we've seen the market make an upward movement, and hopefully we'll continue to see that growth. Typically, we see 1 year of bear market and 3 years of a bull market. And we've already gone through really a year of bear market. So we just have to wait and see what happens. But, I have a lot of faith in the prospects of what's to come.
A really interesting interview there from Darcy. Obviously, we couldn't share the whole video, but we will be publishing the entire interview on our website in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out on fintechmagazine.com to find out more. We do have a few comments in the chat. Thank you very much for everybody who's participating in today's show. Hello to Babatunde from Lagos. Hello to Helen as well from London. Thank you both for joining us. We've got some excellent content for you both still to come. Now, BizClick is going to be very busy over the next few months because we have some major events on the horizon. The first of which is our virtual event, FinTech Live Virtual New York, taking place on Wednesday, the 3rd of May, 2023, between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. New York time. That's 3:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. London. If you can't make any of those times, don't worry, you will be able to catch up after the show on demand. Just register now. We'll have some exciting announcements for you regarding speakers and panels in the coming weeks, but you can book your completely free virtual tickets right now. To save your seat, just visit virtual.fintechmagazine.com. And obviously it is a new month, so we have some new issues of both FinTech Magazine and InsurTech Magazine to look forward to. We're going to take a look now at what we've got in store this month, starting with FinTech Magazine. So the cover feature this month is all about the roadmap to IPO and learning about a new path for private and public companies seeking to generate liquidity. We also take a look at the progress so far of open banking. We ask how buy now, pay later technologies like Apple Pay, as we mentioned earlier, Apple Pay Later, I should say, how they're changing the nature of the e-commerce marketplace. And on the topic of today's show, we also have an article that explores how innovation and disruption in fintech are occurring hand in hand with increased diversity and more women in boardrooms. All of that's available now to read for free at fintechmagazine.com, so do hop on over there and take a look. We've got 2 new issues out this month. So the other issue is our March edition of InsurTech Magazine. So the rather snazzy looking cover art this month is in reference to our feature on RPA, or Robotic Process Automation, and what that revolution in RPA is bringing in terms of value for the insurance industry, particularly in terms of freeing up time for human customer service agents and improving the overall customer experience. Not just that, but we have on digital transformation in the insurance industry. After that landmark survey last year that suggested insurance executives consider blockchain to be all mouth and no substance, we caught up on the topic of blockchain as well and analysed how blockchain technology can be used to reshape the insurance industry. Plus, we take a look at how the cargo and marine insurance sector has been affected by the war in Ukraine 12 months after Russia first invaded. So you can read that article and more in our March issue of InsurTech Magazine. Just visit insurtechdigital.com. And of course, courtesy of FinTech Magazine, we've also got our latest top 10, which this month, to coincide with International Women's Day, is all about the top women in finance. Now we've got the full top 10 for you on our website right now, but we're just going to run through the top 5 women that we think are making a huge impact on the fintech industry at the moment. So without further ado, I'll kick us off with numbers 5, 4, and 3. So in 5th place, we have Joanne Stonia, who is Chief Data Officer at MasterCard. It's not often that data officers get the recognition they deserve, to be quite honest. They're usually sort of overshadowed by CEOs and CTOs. So it's great to see Joanne on the list. Next up is Anne Bowden, CEO and co-founder of Starling Bank. She's a much acclaimed and highly recognizable figure in the finance space, holding a 30-year career in banking before starting Starling in 2014. And in 3rd place, as you can see, is Samantha Koo, the COO of Square Financial Services. A graduate from the University of Miami, she had to attend 50 different job interviews before getting her break from Citibank in 2010. Now, Lucy, it only seems right that I hand it over to you for numbers 2 and 1, so over to you.
Of course. So in 2nd place is Emily Chow, who is president and CEO of Coinbase. She helped build the Coinbase exchange alongside the founder and CEO. She's also a keen angel investor in Series A and Series B funding rounds. And the all-important first place goes to Cristina Junqueira, who is the co-founder of Nubank. Cristina is a qualified engineer and mother of two who co-founded Brazil's first digital bank. The project has been phenomenally successful and has more than 25 million customers.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, an easily recognizable figure to most of our viewers. I think Cristina Junqueira, she really has been a sort of a leading light for the Brazilian fintech space in recent years. So thank you very much for that. Some great examples, as we can see, of female fintech leaders, which plays really nicely into the theme of today's show and the fact that you're here. I think all we need to do now really is sort of address that issue of parity in the boardroom, get closer to parity. On that topic, let's bring in the results of our LinkedIn poll at this point to see what our viewers think about gender equality in the finance space. Lucy, perhaps you could remind us of the question and reveal those all-important answers.
Of course. So the question was, what is the biggest obstacle for women in business today? So the top rated answer was B, gender bias in the workplace, which received 34%. In second place, it was chances for career progression, which had 24%. Third place was lack of female mentorship with 23% of votes. And finally, access to funding, which is not too far behind with 19% of votes. Perfect.
Thank you very much for those. A real sort of even split, I suppose you could say. But when you sort of combine the 34% that gender bias in the workplace got and 24% saying that there's too few chances for career progression, that sort of really adds up to sort of explain the situation that we face, particularly for women in finance roles and senior financial positions. So some really interesting results there. Thank you to everyone who voted and everybody who commented. That's all actually for this month's FinTech Magazine Show live on LinkedIn. I know could go on for longer, but we won't. We'll be back on April 14th with another packed show. So please do put that date in your diary. It's the week after Easter. We look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, thank you so much to Lucy Buckholtz from March 8 Magazine. Lucy, it's been a real pleasure having you here. If we haven't put you off too much, you are welcome back on the show anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to Darcy Donovan as well for her interview in today's show. You can catch the full version of that on our website very soon. And thank you to the incredible production team who've done a fantastic job today, keeping our packed show on track. Lastly, thank you to you for watching. Have a fantastic weekend. And until next time, goodbye.
Bye.